most common wraparound lenders. So basically, it's a loan arrangement in which an existing loan stays in place and an additional loan, larger than the existing mortgage, is made that encompasses it. So how does it work? The wraparound in many cases is a second mortgage, larger than the existing loan on the property. You find a property that you're interested in buying that the sellers will possibly give you seller financing terms. The property has an existing loan that has a balance of $90,000. The existing loan has $150,000 with a monthly payment of $900 per month. Now you sign a promissory note and a mortgage, make reference to the existing loan on the property. The second mortgage, courthouse, showing the book or existing first mortgage. Think of this as a new second mortgage, your check for $900. When the seller receives your $900 check, they send out their check to the lender of the existing first for $600. Gets completely paid off. The sellers get to keep all of your $900 check every month until you've paid all of you were responsible to pay for that property. That's very important. Rates were the same. They're still making $300 a month every month until the payment of the first mortgage is paid off, and then they get $900 a month. It's a larger loan that is property has, including who the original lender is, what book the mortgage is recorded in public records at the courthouse, and what page the mortgage is recorded in the book at the courthouse. Second mortgage, and a satisfaction was recorded, but for some reason, when you go to sell, it's discovered that the existing first mortgage hasn't been satisfied by the first lender. That's going to create a big problem for you and get the situation all screwed up without losing your sale is going to be a possibility. That's why you always have to make reference to that first mortgage in your second mortgage language so that when you go to sell the property, they know where to find the exact you sell it. Now, the wraparound mortgage is very similar to many times when you're doing a subject to deal, where you owe the seller for their equity. You could wrap the existing first, but I wouldn't recommend it. Remember in previous podcasts when I talked about the subject to, where you leave the existing first mortgage in place and you start making the payments, but you leave the note and the mortgage in the previous owner's name, the one that borrowed the money. You just start making the payments, but they deed you the property. Now, the reason I say I would not recommend doing a wrap on a subject to deal, simply if you were to wrap the first mortgage that you took subject to, that could give the existing lender notice that a second mortgage was placed on the property they have their loan on, because you're going to record that second mortgage. If the first mortgage lender doesn't like what's going on, or they feel a violation of the mortgage has been done, they could call the first mortgage due and payable without notice to you before deciding to give you notice. Then it's too late. Now you're going to have to find money to pay off that first, but you have a big second on the property. It's going to create a bad situation. Now, if this were to happen, ready to foreclosure, this would damage the people who deeded you their property subject to, which might give them a reason to sue you for damages. It's a possibility. I don't think it's a good idea to wrap a subject to. I would only do a wrap on a property that I'm buying where the seller has equity and I'm buying it for more than what the existing loan is. We can wrap the underlying first mortgage, and therefore I can record it, but the first is still in full force and effect, and the people that are in the property are the ones sending the payment on to the lender every month. We haven't done a subject to deal. We've simply done a wrap. If you get a property subject to and you give the seller for their equity, I believe it would be a much better way to give the seller a separate promissory note for the amount of their equity that you've agreed to pay, and also a second mortgage that can make reference to the existing first mortgage. But I wouldn't give the seller both the promissory note and the mortgage for their equity that you promised to pay. But don't make it a wrap around. I should say give them the note and the mortgage, but don't make it a wraparound. Make it a standalone second purchase money note and mortgage. To me, that would be the best way to do it. I think it's far better than trying to do a wrap on a subject to deal. You've got too many things negative going on in a subject to deal, especially if the property owner is in default. I wouldn't do it. One thing you need to know that's going to be critical to your financial future, remember this and never forget it. When you personally sign a note and a mortgage without having collateral to secure the loan or something that the lender can take away from you if you don't pay to get their money back, that they could sell, such as the property. The collateral is what a person you owe can take away if you don't pay as agreed by means of a foreclosure. The reason I'm telling you this is very important. If you don't use anything as collateral for something and you use nothing as collateral, if you don't pay as agreed, the person will cover what you owe them. Don't ever forget that. That is a critical thing you need to know. The wraparound mortgage doesn't have to be a complicated thing. If you can just think of it as a small box that's inside of a bigger box to the bank, everybody wins, everybody's happy. Wraparound mortgages have been done for years and years and years successfully by investors. It's a common way of doing business. And why would you want to pay off the existing first and then go beg for a loan for the full amount? It just doesn't make sense. If you can do a wrap, it's a good, solid way of doing business, buying properties that will keep you from having to go to a lender and getting a loan that many times you can't qualify for. So why pay off that underlying first to them? They send their payment on. Now, many people are afraid that, well, yeah, but what if the owners don't? So you have to understand, if they've got a large equity coming, in most cases, they're not going to keep the money and put it in their pocket, let the loan go into default and lose all of their equity. But if that is a concern, many people will hire a third party, such as a bank or some type of an institution, and the institution, like a bank, let's use a bank as an example. The bank sends you pay your $900 payment to the bank. The bank sends the $600 on to the actual lender. If there's any overage, which in our case was $300, they put it into an account for the seller. That way, the payments are made. The owner knows the payments are made. It's another way to handle the situation if you fear that the people that you're paying are not going to send the payment on. But remember, if they have a large equity, chances are they're going to make the payments on time because they want their money. And if they put the payments in their pocket, which could happen, then they're going to lose out, because if the property's foreclosed, whatever you're owed or they're owed, they're going to lose. But if you're seriously worried about it, hire a third party to collect the payments, send on the payment to the underlying first, and give the seller the balance every month if that is what you feel. A wraparound for me works just as good, if not better. I just won't wrap a subject to deal. I will only do it when the first mortgage is not in default. So having said all of that, I think this is a very important lesson that everybody needs to listen to again. It may sound a little complicated, but it's not. Once you understand, the paperwork for a wraparound is simply a note and a mortgage. That's it. So once you understand that, it gets so much simpler, and it is a necessary tool to have in your toolbox if you're going to be a successful investor. because having that ability is going to give you far much more power to do more deals and do better deals, which is going to keep you from having to go to banks and borrow money on a continual basis. So, having said that, I thought this was a very important subject to go over, and I hope you all can understand it. It's an important part of your learning curve, and it's part of the tools you need in your toolbox. So, I want to thank you for listening, and be sure to go to larryharbolt.com for all your real estate learning needs, and happy to help you. I hope these podcasts are giving you good information that you can use that's going to increase your ability to create wealth in the fastest way possible. So I want to thank you for listening. Until next time, good luck, happy investing. Goodbye.